Have you heard quite a bit recently about something called Sustainable September? I know I have. It's quite a catchy little line, really. I like it. Rolls off the tongue easily. I'm a little bit late to the party, though. September will no doubt have been and gone by the time I record this video. But sustainability is something I think about quite a bit anyway, regardless of which month I'm in. Today I'm not going to show you clips of me making containers out of plastic packaging or something wonderful with toilet roll tubes. I'm going to focus on one of the positive things. I'm going to suggest that we can take tangible steps towards being sustainable without going without the things that we love. Now, I'm a massive fan of the old, vintage and generally interesting, so if you'd like to see a few of the little goodies that I've brought back into my cottage recently and how I like to use some of them, stick around while we ponder this whole sustainability thing together. As far as I can see, a common theme of sustainability seems to be giving things up. The very things that make our lives more convenient, easier. I mean, don't grab a coffee on the way to work. Don't pop in for that brie and cranberry roll. Don't even think about bottled drinks. As you can see, food is quite important to me. And since when did any of us like to be told what to do? Shh, don't tell my teenage son I've just said that. Actually, I'm gluten-free, so most convenience food is out of the question for me anyway. Perhaps that's why it's more obvious to me when I see people around me buying these sort of things daily. It's just easy for us to see how other people can change without considering what we can change, isn't it? Of course, you could say that I'm lucky that I'm not buying these things in the first place. That's a tick in the box for not creating rubbish like single-use coffee cups, crisp packets and plastic bottles. Or you could say I'm unlucky because I have to try harder to reduce my daily waste. Therefore, I need to look further, dig deeper for me to make any impact. So how am I going to put my money where my mouth is every day to ensure it's not just a September thing? Well, I'm not a big fan of trends that'll be forgotten long before I've even finished my cup of tea. So we won't even go into any of these. I mean, that's the opposite of sustainability, isn't it? Better to make changes for the right reasons, don't you think? I've decided I prefer the idea of making little changes, sometimes teeny tiny ones, where I can make a change once and the effects can be seen every day. I mean, I choose to buy second hand wherever possible, and with decorative lovelies like these on offer, it's hardly a sacrifice, is it? When we can buy new things so easily and so quickly, it takes more thought and patience not to. I recently relegated my plastic toothbrush to bathroom cleaning duties in favour of a wooden one. Now, it's not just about a toothbrush, of course, it's about a bigger change. It's part of that I'm trying to make where I can gradually swap as many plastic items in my home as possible. For wooden ones, fabric ones, or even cardboard ones. Like I said, a very small change, but one with a snowball effect, I hope. And yes, I've waited until my current one needed replacing, obviously. Otherwise, just plain old shopping. That's not really the idea at all. What do you think? Are you like me? Do you have a bit of a thing when it comes to waste? Have you been reducing, reusing, recycling as far back as you can remember, long before it was fashionable? Yes, I really am showing my age now. I mean, encouraged by my mum at first, she was buying jumble sale clothes to sew with way before it was trendy. And I've carried on with the theme in many ways, I guess. Sturdy old second-hand boxes. They're like gold to me. They fill almost every room in my cottage, including my kitchen, alongside refilled bottles and cardboard, of course, which has 1,001 uses. I get the boxes from shoe shops without ever buying new shoes. And very little gets thrown away in our house. My repair, or rather to repair pile, can get a little bit out of hand too. So, money, mouth, mine. How can I make more changes? Well, manageable actions. I've come to realise that is the key for me. How about you? Multiple mini actions, I guess, ones that will become second nature before long. It's about giving a little extra thought to implement at the beginning, but actually very little extra effort after. Remember, it's not necessarily all about giving up all of our nice things. And anyway, as a consumer, I'm beginning to think that we're bombarded with adverts that feel more like emotional blackmail. I mean, not just to make our own lives, shiny and perfect, but also, and here's the killer, to give our loved ones exactly what they deserve. Boy, do they know how to make us feel guilty. They're masters of it, of course. They know it sells. And when we see this, we can make better decisions. But looking after my family, my home, and my wider environment, I'm in it for the long haul. I'm old enough not to just blindly follow the latest trends, young enough to make lasting, meaningful changes, and wise enough to know the difference. At least, that's what I'm hoping. I'm not going to be sweeping through the house one weekend, replacing everything I'm told isn't good for the environment with something else that's greener looking. It's just playing right into the hands of the companies intent on selling us new, shiny things, isn't it? Things that we didn't know we wanted a few days ago, and things that we don't need. Although I must say, I definitely needed these lovelies I'm showing you at the moment, obviously. If I've given you the impression that I'm a minimalist, well, apologies for misleading you, because I'm certainly not that. But I do genuinely want to reduce my negative impact. You know, the impact that I have on my surroundings. And hand on my heart, I can say that I'm happier surrounded by handmade, old, less than perfect, age-worn pieces that have a history and a story to tell. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that I'm also old, imperfect, and aged. But I acknowledge that buying second-hand is only a small piece of the puzzle here. So how about you? Have you tried being greener? How did you manage to implement the changes? I mean, have you been able to stick to them, or is it a little bit hit and miss? I'm asking because I think it's important to have these conversations, and it's helpful we can learn off each other, isn't it? And by the way, yes, I'd love to show you one day some of the ways that I reuse and recycle every day, if you're interested, of course. You know, let me know if you are, because I think it's great to swap some ideas. So, if we're not giving it all up, how are we making things better? Being more intentional every day, that's important to me. I remember a short article a little while ago where the author was exasperated when they saw a fabric tote bag that was being advertised as reusable. Surely all tote bags are reusable, aren't they? They squealed at me in black and white. Well, the tote wasn't made from waste materials. It wasn't going to change the world, nor did it have the ability to put the kettle on and make a cup of tea, you know, just before the owner came back from work. It was just your average tote. And the author didn't have any beef with the bag itself. They did take exception to the fact that it was being advertised as reusable, especially as, they presumed, most of us already have more fabric bags piling up in the cupboard than we ever had of plastic carrier bags. But, you know, is this more of a British problem than an American or worldwide one? Perhaps, I don't know. And anyway, who doesn't love making and using fabric bags? I do. Since all mine are sewn from faded sofa covers, torn duvets and other second-hand fabrics, I'm not going to feel guilty about that either. Yes, I realise that shopping is just the tip of the iceberg when we're talking about our planet, but it's a good one to start with since it's in our immediate control, and it makes for a lasting change, because if we no longer want to buy at such an exorbitant rate, then we're not actually giving much up, are we? However, if we just add the word reusable to everything, well, it's a pretty slippery slope too, don't you think? Obviously, the author was much more eloquent than me, and he didn't ramble on as much as I am, but I think they made a reasonable point. They certainly gave me food for thought, and I think I've probably laboured this more than I should have, so being more intentional. Okay, well, how about buying things when we need them rather than because they're in our favourite colour or because it gives us that lovely dopamine hit when we gift something to ourselves? What? Oh yes, another golden idea, wasn't it, when the advertising crew started telling us that buying pretty things for ourselves was part of self-care, and of course we deserve it. In our family, when we fall in love with something at a vintage sale that we really don't need, we buy it for one another and put it aside for Christmas. Fortunately, we're all as forgetful as each other, so we're surprised and delighted when we open it again at Christmas. It works very well for us. It can make me feel quite insignificant when I think I'm just one person in a world where we really aren't looking after our planet very well at all, are we? But there are plenty of things that we do have immediate control over, so that involves us as individuals, and, you know, by that I mean me, doing more today. Searching things out for weeks or months before I can finally bring them home, including lovely vintage bottles, old children's books, furniture, craft supplies, fabric. You get the idea. And you have to admit, not only Are they often more durable than the new counterparts? But old things are just so much more interesting than mass produced. I still remember the first time I heard a shopping channel use the phrase considered purchase, even though it was clearly sales speak for expensive. I was left thinking, but for every purchase, new or second-hand, should all be considered ones, shouldn't they? But do we really need to ask every time who made it, where, in what conditions, what from, how long will it last, what happens with it afterwards? Well, it sounds like a faff, but honestly, I believe these are the kinds of considerations that should accompany most purchases, and buying second-hand can limit the impact of some, obviously not all. Like anything else, I mean, it gets easier with practice, and we like easier sometimes, don't we? And yes, compromise does tend to rear its head a fair bit too, although I'm glad I drew the line at the thought of a second-hand toothbrush. Now, as I see it, we owe it to ourselves and those around us to have a little bit more integrity sometimes, to make questioning our actions, what we're doing and why, just make them part of our new daily living habits. Or do we? I mean, maybe I'm alone in this one. To me, this isn't the same as being tight with our hard-earned money. It's about being responsible, accountable, and, yeah, you've guessed it, sustainable, whichever month we're in.